Hey everybody, he's the guy. Anime or movies, he doesn't lie. He's the punk, otaku, scribe. Hey, where'd the song go? Anyways, enjoy the content.
Hi, Peanut. I'm gonna need you to come with me right now.
Look, lady, I'm not interested.
Unless you want to take a deep breath through your forehead, I suggest you reconsider.
Life is a mystery.
Everyone's favorite best bubs are finally in a movie together, and it was well worth the wait. Hello everybody, it's your boy the Punk Otaku Scribe, and we're finally gonna talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. To say this was an anticipated team-up is an understatement. Deadpool and Wolverine have an extremely long history with each other and have had an enduring rivalry that fans can't help but love. What makes them work so well as a duo is the fact that they're such polar opposites of each other personality-wise. It's a classic trope of the straight man and the funny guy. It creates conflict and of course comedy when Wade gets on Logan's nerve. But despite those differences, they also have a very similar history. Both are experiments of the Weapon X program that gave them each a gift as well as a curse. So with such a storied past and clearly a passionate fan base, it was inevitable that we would get them on the big screen one day. And we finally did. Oh, no. Not yet. What? Did you think I wouldn't talk about this one? Yeah, technically, Wolverine and Deadpool's first on-screen appearance together was in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Not a team-up movie, but they weren't on screen together, and they actually did do a team-up in the movie, though that wasn't the main focus. X-Men Origins Wolverine is widely considered to be the worst of the Wolverine movies, and quite possibly of the X-Men movies in general. I don't know. I kind of like this one. I know, rake me over the coals, throw your tomatoes, but I genuinely like this movie. I saw it in theaters the weekend it came out, and I have to admit, I actually didn't like it at first, but I did soften up on it over time. I thought, it's kind of fun, but despite the fact that I do like it now, I still have to admit that it greatly mishandles a lot of things, namely Deadpool. So sure, he's played by Ryan Reynolds. Sure, he cracks wise.
God, you ever shut up, pal?
No, not when I'm awake.
But he's not in the suit, and by the end of it, they seal his mouth shut, and he's a completely unrecognizable version of himself. It was just a mess. It was just a great mess, and no one liked it. Not even I did. Despite the reception from fans and critics, though, X-Men Origins Wolverine actually did do really well, making more than half its budget at the box office. And of course, as we all know, Wolverine went on to make 2 more films and continue to appear in X-Men movies. Wade, though, wouldn't get a redemption from this for another 7 years. But when that came around, it was quite the redemption. February 12th, 2016, Deadpool starring Ryan Reynolds drops in theaters and takes the world by storm. 782 million plus box office take, the biggest R-rated opening ever, the highest grossing R-rated movie ever at the time. It was an explosion, a phenomenon. Who could have seen this coming except for maybe everybody, considering how popular Deadpool was in the comic book space? But regardless, Deadpool was back. A lot of Deadpool's success comes from the fact that by that point, we hadn't had a superhero movie like it since Blade. Something that violent and that abrasive in the superhero genre was kind of refreshing by that point, because it had been quite a long time. But it wasn't even just the shock and the violence that made people gravitate towards it. Sure, that was a big help, it was fun, but it's a genuinely good movie too. It really is, and I'd argue it's a good Valentine's Day movie. Deadpool got the big hits at Fox thinking, there might be something to this R-rated superhero thing, and gave us the 1-2 punch the next year with Logan. Logan is no exaggeration my favorite superhero movie of all time. Nothing comes close. It's viscerally emotional. Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart are killing it in their performances, and the R rating allows the character to be as violent as he always had the potential to be. It hits all the right targets. It just presses all the right buttons for me. And even today, watching it today, it still affects me the same way. This wasn't just a superhero movie. This was a film. Now, while it wasn't as successful as Deadpool, it only made just under 100.2 million less than Deadpool, but it wasn't a slouch either. It made 600 plus million worldwide against a production budget of $97 million, which is considered gangbusters. That's 6 times its budget. It took the world by storm itself, even though it was just under the success of Deadpool. But with Wolverine at its peak and Deadpool being such a success, surely by now they'd go ahead and give us a team up. Yep. Wolverine was dead, Hugh Jackman was done, and after Deadpool 2, the Disney-Fox merger went into effect. And with the Disney-Fox merger, there were a lot of questions. What was the future of Deadpool? What was the future of the X-Men? How would they integrate into the MCU? No one knew. But then, just a few years later, we would get that answer.
Hey, Hugh, you want to play Wolverine one more time?
Yeah, sure, Ryan.
I am soaking wet right now.
But unfortunately, not all of us were as excited as me or Deadpool. With the announcement of this movie and the main trailer dropping, there were actually some concerns that the return of Hugh Jackman delegitimized the ending of Logan. Yeah, so an argument I was seeing a lot around online was that Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine in this movie lessened the death of Logan, but I completely disagree. I have 2 rebuttals for that. My short and sweet one is, if you have ever read a comic book, you would know that no character ever truly stays dead. That's the simpler rebuttal. But the more complicated rebuttal is that they are 2 truly different characters, because it all lies in the performances. Take, for example, the car speech. Whether you've seen this movie or not, chances are you've heard of this scene because of how good Hugh Jackman's performance is in it. Now, yes, the Fox Wolverine certainly has rage and emotion, but his emotions were never utilized in this way. No, this speech that this Wolverine is giving is coming from a place of anguish as well as rage, and Fox Wolverine would not have expressed himself in this way in the same situation. After the speech, Deadpool says he's going to fight Wolverine over this, and Wolverine reacts with a laugh, showing that he takes threats with sarcasm. Fox Wolverine would furrow his brow and get to fighting, wasting no time at all if he got threatened in the exact same way. But unfortunately, a great performance isn't enough for some people even still. There are some in the fanbase that believe that Hugh Jackman's day as Wolverine is done, that someone else should take up that mantle, that it's finally time for that. And that might be all well and good. I'd be welcoming to anyone else to take up Wolverine. But the hard truth is, just like Batman or Spider-Man, Wolverine sells, especially Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Go out on the street, okay, and ask anyone at all, just any Joe Schmo on the street, ask them to name an X-Men, and chances are they're gonna say Wolverine. You there, over there. Yes, you. Name an X-Men. Any X-Men at all.
Wolverine. Hey, wait a minute. How did you get this now?
In Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, when Deadpool and Wolverine are fighting, I'd say around the second time, Deadpool says so himself. I realized what your superpower is. It's not regeneration. It's popularity. That's Marvel acknowledging how big Wolverine is, how popular Wolverine is. Wolverine is enduring. And yes, at some point we need to move on. But considering that Deadpool having a third movie was pretty anticipated and that was kind of getting muddied up by the Disney Fox merger, there was just circumstances that had to make this happen in this way. There was a third Deadpool movie coming out. It was from a different studio, being Disney, not a Fox movie. They just needed to pull out the big guns. And the big gun this time was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Okay, so I realize I've been going on a bit of a Wolverine tangent, and I apologize for that. But from this point forward, I'm going to really get into the movie proper, I promise. So with that being said, I do need to let you know, from here on out, there will be heavy spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. I can't get around the spoilers on them. It'll just be too hard to talk about them without spoiling anything. So, from here on out, huge spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. So, for as good as this movie is, as much as I adore this movie, I do have some problems with it. 3 main ones. One's not really that big of a deal, and 2 are pretty big deals, and one of those 2 big deals is an egregious one to me. But let's get into the least offensive one first. So the main Deadpool cast from 1 and 2 are in here. Not all of them, but they're in here. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, Yukio, Colossus, Peter, Shadowstar, Blind Owl, and Vanessa. They're all there, but they unfortunately only bookend the movie. They're there at the beginning, and then they're there at the end when the adventure is done. But this sort of created a lapse in the story a little bit because they're Wade's entire motivation for what he's doing. He's doing what he's doing in the story to save them. But when they're gone, all of those stakes are lost. They get lost in the narrative because we're not seeing the danger that they're potentially in. He brings them up every so often, and that reminds you of why he's doing that. But when you don't see the dangers that they're in, where are the stakes? You only hear about them. I don't know. Thinking about it, it got me thinking. It's really just a nitpick for me, but it's still just a flaw in the writing. Now, speaking of Vanessa, this movie does what I hate when movies do it. Okay, here goes. Okay. They break up Wade and Vanessa so they can tease a potential romance at the end. I hate it when movies do this. I hate it so much. It's so lazy. They did it to Indiana Jones. They did it to Lydia Deetz this year in the new Beetlejuice. They did it to Johnny, Mark Wahlberg's character, in the Ted movies. All you're doing is you're taking the happy ending that you gave us previously and then just tearing it apart because you don't know what to do with the new couple characters. It is so frustrating and lazy. All you're doing is destroying a happy ending so you can make another happy ending. It's pointless. It's a waste of time. And Deadpool 2 had the most impossible of happy endings. He literally turned back time to bring her back to life so he could be with her again. There wasn't even any kind of conflict of, oh, should we still be together or anything. No, he literally brought her back because he wanted to be with her so they could be a couple. And then you just tear that apart to do like a little tease at the end. It ruins the character's motivation in the previous story. What's the point of the story beforehand if leading into the new adventure, they're just going to be torn apart again? Please, movies, stop doing this. Okay, moving on from that, before I go on way too long of a tangent, let's move on to Cassandra Nova, my other issue with this movie. No, I liked the characters just fine. No, I liked the performance just fine. Emma Corrin, they killed it as Cassandra Nova in this. I've no doubt. In fact, I would argue that they were my favorite performance in the movie. But as far as the character goes, who is she supposed to be? No, I know. She's supposed to be Xavier's sister, but which Xavier? I know that question sounds like I'm nitpicking here, but there's a lot of factors in this that actually raises a lot of questions and makes this confusing. Is she the sister of the Fox Xavier who died in The Last Stand? Is she the sister of the resurrected Xavier who is, I think, supposed to be a different Xavier? Is she the sister of the James McAvoy Xavier? Is she the sister of the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness Xavier? It doesn't really explain it. And what makes it even more confusing than that is that this Wolverine talks about her brother as if he knew her. Now, you could make the argument, I guess, that he's talking about Xavier in general, but all of these variants are supposed to be different. So, how would that even make any sense? I don't know. This was really baffling to me, even in the theater, as I saw them talking to each other. Alright, okay, fine. Despite this being one of my favorite movies this year, I'm gonna have to take the L and admit it. This movie has a lot about its writing that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Fine, I'll admit it. But despite this writing, man, the rest of it is a whole lot of fun. And when I say fun, I mean an absolute blast. The action in this movie is some of the best action I've seen in an MCU movie in a very long time. I'm talking Infinity War Endgame levels, man. Even beyond, say, the Wolverine and Logan and any of the X-Men movies. This one nearly tops them all. This was really, really fun to watch. If you were to ask me to pick a sequence, a favorite action sequence, I couldn't, because it's all so amazing and fun to watch. It's all peak, and I won't hear any different. You know what else is peak? Those cameos. It wouldn't be a Marvel movie without those cameos. And with this movie being a love letter and goodbye to the Fox universe, there's a lot of great faces here. But, of course, the most notable ones are the ones that they focus on a lot more of, which is Jennifer Garner as Elektra, Wesley Snipes as the one and only Blade, Chris Evans as the Human Torch. But the one that stood out to me the most, the one that was the biggest surprise to me and the most fun, was Gambit, played by the patron saint of memes, Channing Tatum.
My name is Jeff.
Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
And that he most assuredly did. You know, despite this movie's sarcastic sense of humor, it, for the most part, treats these cameos with respect. I say for the most part because a couple of them get knocked around, you know. But it does. It treats these cameos with respect, which is what these characters deserve. The fact that Channing Tatum is Gambit in this is actually such a wholesome thing. For those of you that don't know, Channing Tatum years ago was actually set to have his own solo Gambit movie, but for one reason or another, it just fell through. So the fact that he's in this, in a movie that's a celebration and love letter to the Fox Marvel Universe, means that Ryan Reynolds and the team here that made Deadpool and Wolverine had a love and respect and wanted to celebrate Channing Tatum and his love for this character as well. It's when you know that fact, it makes this character's inclusion in this movie just all the better, and I love it. And there's a chance that the character has a future too. Semi-recently, there was a deleted scene released that implies that Gambit returned to his universe, and I hope that that comes to fruition, because here's the thing. I don't personally think he could carry a solo Gambit movie, but I think he deserves to continue to play the character and have a future in these franchises, however they want to do it, whether it's in a show or in the MCU's X-Men. But Channing Tatum deserves it, and I hope they give it to him. In fact, I can see that any of these characters has a future. I really think that the fact that Wesley Snipes as Blade in this says there's only one Blade kind of means something. With Mahershala Ali's Blade constantly just going in and out of production, I wouldn't mind if Wesley Snipes was just the MCU's Blade. I know he said something about wanting like a Logan type send-off movie for his version of the character, but man, no, stick around, because as we've all mentioned, man, your Blade, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I would love it if he stuck around. For those other two cameos that I didn't bring up, I'm only going to talk about them briefly because I honestly don't have that much to say about them, but I will touch on them briefly. First off, because it was the lesser of the cameos in terms of time, Henry Cavill as Wolverine, the Cavalrine, if you will. You know, this has been a fan cast and rumors for a long time that Henry Cavill was going to be Wolverine. No, he was going to be Captain Britain. He was going to be in the MCU somehow, right? Do I want him as the Wolverine in the MCU? At this point, I'm going to say no. And here's why, very briefly. I think if you're going to bring in a replacement for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, an actor we've seen as a character for decades at this point and is burned into our minds as the character when we think of the character, I don't think you want to introduce the replacement as a joke cameo. The joke is that he's Henry Cavill doing a Marvel movie. I think is what the joke is, right? And I don't know if that's really the proper way to go about that, to introducing that version of the character. Now, if they move forward with it, I'm not going to hate it. I'll welcome it. I just don't think that introduction would be the best way to go about it. But hey, that's just me. If it ends up happening, that'll be cool. I like Henry Cavill. All right, and for the other cameo, actually not a cameo. It was just a full-on character. Daphne Keane as Laura in this. So, Daphne Keane as Laura in Logan blew me away. I thought she was fantastic in it. You know, she had a lot of energy, and she was feral, and had a lot of emotion, and emoted really great, and just did a great performance. There was a lot of just ferocity to that. She was just an absolute force in that movie, and she was so young too. It was impressive. She was really subdued. It was weird. It was really underwhelming. She does fine in this film. It was just that it wasn't what Laura was in Logan. And according to some sources, it's this exact same character. If she's different for some reason, they didn't really get into why. Right? Like, I could understand if the death of Logan affected her in a way that she became somewhat different, but that ferocity and energy just wasn't there. She just kind of gave a very just subdued and calmer performance. Somewhat a stiffer performance, too. I don't know, it didn't do it for me. Like, it did in Logan. With Logan, it was like, yes, I believe these two are a team, and I could believe her as the one to take the mantle after Logan. And in this one, she's just like, hey, I'm here. And they didn't really get into too much of how she feels seeing his face again. They didn't really get into that. It was just like, oh, do you remember Laura from Logan? There she is. Yeah, it was a disappointment. Looking on the characters in general, they all have such great chemistry with each other, especially Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. You know, online, they have this persona that they play off of each other, that they're rivals or have a frenemy-ship or whatever, right? They bring that to these performances. That chemistry is just on fire. You know, Hugh Jackman, you know, what else can I say more about him? He's one of our greatest actors right now. I said that about him earlier. Ryan Reynolds, not even just as Deadpool, in general as a performer, he is just so quick-witted and charming and funny. It's just, the two together is just a perfect storm. It's amazing. And everyone kind of has that going. Everyone is firing on all cylinders. And earlier I mentioned that the writing has some flaws. It does. But that doesn't mean that it's a badly written movie. It's not. It has a lot of heart, and it's really funny, and at the end of the day, it's just a really great movie. It really is. Now, this is not the MCU is back video. It's not. I don't play that, man. You know, I've criticized Marvel in the past, and I still believe that. This movie is a great movie in a sea of mediocrity. Now, considering what's coming out later on, who knows? Maybe they can get that mojo back, but I still got it in my heart, man, that they got some time to make up for. But here, they came out with a gem. And I said it earlier, this is one of my favorite movies of the year, and it might be my favorite movie of the year. Story's fantastic, the characters are great, the music's great, the action is fantastic. That fight with all the Deadpool clones, chef's kiss. This entire movie is a chef's kiss, not even just as a Marvel movie, just as a movie in general. And it's a great love letter to the Fox universe too. This movie is the whole package, and I can't talk about it enough. That being said, though, at some point it has to be enough, and I'm choosing for that to be now. Otherwise, I'll go on for hours and hours. But just a final note, the ending of this movie, the last shot of this movie of their masks sitting next to each other, has me interested on what that means about the future for these two, especially Wolverine. As always, like I ask at the end of these videos, what did you think of this movie? If you saw it already, what do you think of the MCU right now in the state that it's in? Do you have hope for it? What do you think about Hugh Jackman as Wolverine? Do you think he should just go on being Wolverine forever, or do you think it's time he hung up those claws? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Follow my socials if you haven't already. Let's talk everything MCU, superheroes, Deadpool, Wolverine, Marvel Comics, all of that down there. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and take care.
Go.